Today, I'm going to explain a horror video game adaptation film called Exit 8. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie opens in a crowded subway station where our protagonist, who is only called the Lost Man, is scrolling through his social media. Moments later, a baby begins to cry nearby, so one of the passengers starts yelling at the mother for bringing her child into the crowded subway and disturbing others. The Lost Man, along with other passengers, ignores what's happening, and no one stands up for the poor woman. As the Lost Man gets off the train, he gets a call from his ex-girlfriend, which he reluctantly answers. She then gives him shocking news, revealing that she's pregnant and currently at the hospital. She asks for his advice, but the man just asks which hospital she's in and says he wants to visit. However, she claims to have already made up her mind and reveals her decision, but the man doesn't hear anything because the signal has been lost. The phone call is also cut short, after which the anxious man rushes through the underground passage towards exit number 8. Moments later, the Lost Man encounters an odd-looking older guy, referred to only as the Walking Man. Our protagonist continues walking and soon reaches a corridor where there is a wallboard sign showing exit 0, but when he moves forward, he once again finds himself in the central hall with an exit 8 sign, and the same Walking Man is moving towards him. This frightens the Lost Man, and he tries to flee, but he finds himself in the same spot with the same guy passing by again and again. The poor guy realizes something is wrong, and at one point, the Walking Man eerily stands behind him, causing him to quicken his pace in fear. But he soon encounters the same man again, forcing him to turn back in the opposite direction, only to end up in the same underground passage. He then tries to find a way out through the metal doors and even triggers the emergency alarm, but nothing works. Moments later, the Lost Man stares at the pictures on the wall when all of a sudden, he notices blood pouring from one of the signs. He begins to panic and runs back, only to be shocked to see that the wallboard sign has changed from exit 0 to exit 1. He then reads information on a board nearby, which says that if anomalies are detected, he must return to where he came from, and if there are none, he must move on. It turns out that by following these simple rules, he will be able to escape from here when the wallboard sign reaches exit 8. Next, the Lost Man moves forward and tries to talk to the Walking Man again, but the latter ignores him and walks past with a cold, soulless gaze. Our protagonist continues and doesn't notice anything strange, but when he approaches the wallboard, it says exit 0, which means he missed an anomaly. To avoid making the same mistake again, he now photographs everything, including pictures, doors, a fire hydrant, ventilation, and even the Walking Man, so he can compare them all. He doesn't see any anomaly and reaches exit 1 before breathing a sigh of relief. But when he looks at the pictures he has taken, he's stunned to notice that they are actually corrupted, which means he isn't allowed to cheat. While he is searching for an anomaly, the Walking Man suddenly appears behind him and smiles strangely. Go! The Lost Man assumes this is an anomaly, so he runs away in the opposite direction, being followed by the old guy. Fortunately, our protagonist's judgment turns out to be correct, and he finally reaches the wallboard sign saying exit 2. In the next loop, he checks all the items and doesn't notice anything different, but all of a sudden, he hears a child crying from inside the storage locker. He tries to open the locker at first, but eventually decides against it and runs in the opposite direction. It turns out to be just an anomaly, and he makes it to exit 3, indicating that everything is going well so far, and all he had to do was leave that child in the locker. Afterward, the Lost Man observes his surroundings and doesn't see any anomaly. However, as he proceeds to leave, he notices the big-eyed posters staring at him eerily. The scared guy quickly turns back and reaches exit 4, which fills him with hope. The next loop also goes smoothly, and without spotting any anomalies, he continues forward and reaches exit 5. Shortly after, he unexpectedly receives a call from his ex again, who wonders where he is. The Lost Man responds that he's still in the subway and walking in circles because he's lost. She wants to discuss their situation, so he suddenly tells her about the baby in the subway who was crying earlier and how a man was scolding the mother. He reveals how no one stood up for the poor woman, including himself, as they were all glued to their phones. He feels remorseful and tearfully says he can't be a good father. He just loves Instagram too damn much, while we see his ex standing eerily behind him. Moments later, the man hangs up and moves forward, but he is shocked to find himself back at exit 0. He realizes that the phone call was just an anomaly and feels stupid since there's no signal in this place. He has no choice but to move forward and notices the central hall illuminated completely in yellow. At this point, he begins to have a nervous breakdown and experiences asthma, causing him to collapse in distress, but he somehow calms himself and turns back before reaching exit 1 once again. In the next loop, the Lost Man notices a little boy, but he thinks it's just an anomaly and turns around. Soon he finds himself back at exit 0, which means the boy was real. He encounters the boy again and tries to talk, but the latter doesn't say anything. anything. The boy then arrives at the central hall and points at the walking man, leaving our protagonist confused. The scene then cuts to a flashback from the perspective of the walking man, who is also stuck in this underground passage. He manages to reach exit 4 without any issues and comes across the same little boy. The walking man realizes he isn't an anomaly and decides they'll find their way out together. This time they notice a young girl passing by each time in the hallway as an NPC character. Soon the duo manages to reach exit 5, and while looking for anomalies, the young girl suddenly begins speaking to the walking man. She explains that she is also lost, like them, and assumes they might already be dead and in hell or purgatory. That's what people thought about Lost, and everyone just ended up confused and pissed off. But things take a bizarre turn when the girl begins speaking in a distorted voice, telling him that returning might not be the best idea, and they should stay there. She claims that the daily commute, homework, and repetitive routine of a job are true hell, and repeats the last phrase several times. Realizing that she's an anomaly, the walking man and the boy turn around and soon end up at exit 6, which fills them with hope. In the next loop, the boy notices a knob in the center of the door, which wasn't there before, and stares at it. The walking man doesn't understand the hint and takes the kid away from there, only to end up at exit 0. The man erupts in rage, rips down the information sign, and then tearfully shouts how he needs to meet his son today. But after a few seconds, he eventually calms himself and takes the boy's hand before moving forward. In the next loop, they notice a staircase that seems to lead to an exit, which makes the walking man very excited. The boy realizes it's an anomaly and tries to stop him, but the man refuses and pushes him to the ground before leaving alone. He soon disappears, after which the boy turns back and ends up at exit 1, which means that he was right. He moves forward and notices the walking man again, but this time he is seen walking like a robot. The scared kid approaches him, but the man just ignores him, revealing that he has become just an NPC and is forever stuck in this nightmare. The boy soon finds himself at exit 0 and moves forward, where he meets our protagonist. In the present, the two are seen observing their surroundings, and even though the lost man doesn't notice anything strange, the boy sees an anomaly sign on the overhead board, but he just stares without saying anything, and the lost man also doesn't understand the hint. They soon arrive at exit 0, which leaves the man frustrated and hopeless. In the next loop, the lost man thinks the poster on the wall looks a bit different, but the boy begins running away, prompting the man to follow him. They end up at exit 1, which means the boy was right, and it shows he has exceptional observation skills. He once again finds another anomaly when he notices a strange knob in the middle of a door and stares at it. The lost man also notices this, and the two successfully manage to reach exit 2 by turning around. However, in the next level, the lights in the hallway suddenly go out, so the lost man turns on the flashlight on his phone. Things then take a terrifying turn when all of a sudden, blood begins dripping from the ventilation, accompanied by the alarming sounds of a baby crying and rats screeching. The lost man is filled with disgust and fear when he notices a swarm of rats, each with human organs growing from it. He then grabs the kid's hand before turning around, and when the lights come back on, they realize they've reached exit 3. The two continue forward and soon notice a woman standing eerily in the middle of the hallway. It turns out to be the kid's mother, so he finally speaks for the first time and exclaims, "Mama," while trying to get closer. But the lost man realizes it's just an anomaly, so he stops the kid, during which the latter loses consciousness. The man then carries the boy before turning around, and they finally reach exit 4. When the boy wakes up, the two finally begin talking, and the kid reveals how he was separated from his mom, but he claims he did it on purpose because he wanted her to find him. The lost man is amused by this and says he also did the same stupid thing as a child. They begin to open up and discover some strange coincidences, such as the fact that they are both afraid of their mother and have never met their father. Next, they continue moving, and the boy notices another anomaly, prompting them to turn around. They reach exit 5, and in the next level, the lost man notices one of the metal doors open. He peers inside and is stunned to see himself in the subway when the baby is crying in his mother's arms. The man feels bad for ignoring them and closes the door, after which they turn back and reach exit 6. They feel very hopeful, and the man asks the boy what he'll do first if they get out. The kid says he wants to eat a double cheese pizza, which makes the lost man smile. "You'll be constipated." Before they move further, the boy gives him a snail shell as a gift and says it will protect him. In the next loop, the two hear a loud siren, and sensing the danger, the lost man quickly hugs the boy. Things take a bizarre turn when the hallway begins to flood with dirty water, and the duo desperately tries to turn around and leave. However, they can't get very far before the flood overwhelms them and carries them away. The scene then cuts to a beach where we see the lost man with his girlfriend spending a beautiful day with their son. The couple is chatting when the boy runs up to them and gives his dad a shell he found. In a shocking twist, it turns out to be the same kid from the hallway, and the lost man hugs him tightly before playing with him in the water. We then return to the flooded passageway where the lost man places the boy above an overhead sign and asks him to hold on tightly to avoid being washed away by the current. The boy agrees, but unfortunately, the current eventually carries the lost man away. A while later, the kid wakes up and notices the flood is gone and discovers a pile of dirty debris around him. He doesn't see the lost man anywhere, so he turns around alone and reaches exit 7. Then he goes through the last level where he doesn't notice any anomalies, prompting him to move ahead. The scene then cuts to the lost man, who turns out to still be alive and rushes through the hallway for the final level. He carefully checks items for anomalies but finds nothing, so he hopes he's not mistaken and moves forward. Fortunately, he reaches exit 8 and he's thrilled to realize that he has finally escaped the hellhole. He then stares at the shell and thinks about the boy before heading toward the stairs. The lost man notices several rushing commuters and also receives a signal on his phone, implying that he has finally returned to the real world. Soon, he calls his girlfriend and learns that she is still at the hospital. She asks for his decision, but he ignores that and says he's coming to visit her now. The lost man soon enters the subway to go to the hospital, but things suddenly take a bizarre turn once again. The same baby begins crying in his mother's arms, and the same angry man scolds her for bringing the child and disturbing others. The lost man is horrified when he realizes he still hasn't escaped the loop and has ended up in the same scenario as before. Comes to an end.